You know who I hate? Artists. Those incredibly smug jerks flaunting their magic power to create something from nothing, which they received at birth for free without even trying. All they do is stink up our perfectly sensible world with all sorts of confusing stuff like metaphors, impressionism. Now I gotta interpret stuff. I can't just live in a world and take everything literally. Ooh, that's why we all hate them, those a-holes. Art holes. What's that? Did you say something to me? Did you say something to me, the little guy on your phone screen? You don't hate artists. Some of you are artists. Come, don't say that about yourselves. You're among friends here. We can admit it. We all hate artists and the very concept of art which is bad for the world. This is why, for example, just off the top of my head, it's okay to not pay them very much, because like their work, no matter how skillful or valuable, isn't worth compensating, because that would incentivize other people to become artists, which we do not want. Why else would we tell children to avoid a career in the arts at all costs? Like how unrealistic and naive their creative little dreams are. They should do something useful, like, for example, making software that automates spam emails advertising off-brand supplements. You know, a real job that makes money. The people who get money from art shouldn't be artists. It should be, well, I don't know exactly who, but somebody other than the artists, another person. That makes more sense to me. And you know, now that I think about it, actually, I think that's a good thing we could do with all human labor, is it should always benefit people that aren't performing it. That seems like a pretty rational way to organize our economy. And I mean, it's not like art is really work anyway. It's a silly, frivolous thing. It's a hobby at best. You know, it demands nothing of the human body. It doesn't burn calories. It doesn't take time or effort. We all feel this way. It's why people can say with a straight face that quote-unquote AI-generated quote-unquote art democratizes the artistic process. For every artist you respect who is anti-NFT or anti-AI, there are 1,000 people who can't be an artist because they weren't born in the right body, right place, or right family to pursue art and never given the tools, time, or support to believe in their own dreams. No longer are you gatekept by the extremely costly entry fee of a pencil. Now anybody can create what is art. It's not good art, it's bad, but anybody can make it now, which is different from how it was before. For the first time in human history, everyone is able to make bad art, but not the way that we've always all been able to make bad art. Still, the important thing here is that artists don't get to lord their artiness over us and make us feel bad for not being able to do it. Get wrecked, bozos. Learn to code. You think you're so special going around making masterpieces and entertainment and enriching my life and defacing perfectly sensible cave walls? You think you're better than me? You think you're better than me simply because you're better than me at this one thing? Well, now who's laughing? My whole life I've been made to feel inferior simply because I haven't put in the effort to get as good as these guys. Why should that hold me back? It's not fair. I should be able to draw. I deserve to draw, and I don't think I should have to study and practice, and I don't really believe that any of them did either. For the better part of a year, I've been doing some streams where I draw a little comic book with just a little comic book full of little guys. What you working on, mate? It's a comic book. And in this panel, there's an erotic clown. And one comment that keeps popping up whenever people come to the stream for the first time is, "Oh, hey, Thought Slam, I didn't know you knew how to draw." And that frustrates me for two reasons. Firstly, because I end each and every video since like 2017 with a bunch of doodles I did for my patrons at patreon.com/thoughtslime, wink, wink. More importantly, no, I don't. I don't know how to draw. Now, look, I know you want to comfort me. You think, hey, look at this adorable little baby. He's belittling himself. Let's all come together and give him a cake. No, I'm truly not. I have a certain amount of skill at drawing, and statistically, I'm better at it than like most people probably, but I'm still working on a lot of the core skills that one needs to be truly technically proficient. I say still working on, but like, I don't know, dog, it's been 38 years, so there's no real guarantee I'm going to get there. I ain't never going to learn perspective, let's be real. You cannot make me, and I know, because many art teachers have tried. In one of those streams that I mentioned, I spent the whole time, literally, like 3 hours trying to draw a single car over and over, and I simply could not do it. Months later, I still haven't done it. I know the shapes of a car. It's a box and a wedge shape with some ovals thrown in. I get that, but I can't put them together to make the car. I simply cannot do it yet. I require more practice. If I were to map myself on an arbitrary Dunning-Kruger bell curve, I'd be like, here. I know what a lot of the things I do not yet know are. I know how I could improve. I know what I could study and learn about. I'm able to see flaws in my work that a more untrained eye might miss, even if I'm not yet skilled enough to correct them. This is perhaps why, to me, it's obvious that I do not know how to draw, but to others, it might seem like I do. Limited though it may be, I have enough training to understand the problems with my own work better than the general public might. The thing is, you cannot learn to draw. That's not a real thing you can do. That was a made-up idea. It is impossible. Like we could take this broadly. You actually can't learn to do anything, but we're going to focus on drawing in this video because it's easier to illustrate. Part 1, nobody can draw. What is drawing? Webster's dictionary defines draw. I don't know, I didn't look it up. We think of drawing as a skill to be practiced. You sit down with a sketchbook and you bang out enough drawings, and eventually your hands become good art hands. Obviously though, it is more complicated than that. If that was how you approached practicing, you would just ingrain whatever bad habits you started with. You'd end up with a sketchbook full of very well-crafted stick figures, I guess. Because drawing is, when you break it down, 2 skills: observing and rendering. The rendering part is obvious. You need to draw. You got to do the drawing part of the drawing. The drawing has to come out of you onto the page from your hands, or if you don't have hands, maybe your mouth or feet or whatever. And I think you realize that drawing involves making a drawing, but your ability to render is constituent on your ability to observe. You have to know what things look like in order to render them appropriately, which sounds simple. Just look at stuff. Look at how it looks and do that. You've seen stuff, unless you were born blind, in which case, admittedly, it will be much more difficult to learn how to draw. Just draw the stuff like how it looks. And it is that simple, but that isn't simple at all. People will often mock an artist they feel did a bad job, and say something like, has this guy ever seen a person before? Does this guy know what a person even looks like? Because you can look at the drawing and tell it doesn't look right. It just doesn't click in the way that it should. And I'm using Rob Liefeld as my example here because people like to say that Rob Liefeld is bad at drawing, and like, no, he isn't. Like, objectively, he is not. He is quite skilled. You don't have to like him as a guy. You don't have to like his art either. I don't. I think it's ugly as hell, but that's a matter of taste. And he is by no means a master draftsman. Don't get me wrong. There are flaws with his work, sometimes glaring ones. Like, sure, he sometimes draws fucked up looking proportions or muscles that don't exist, and he does take a lot of shortcuts, like conspicuously placing foreground elements to avoid having to draw feet, but he does have a general grasp on human anatomy when he tries. Better than, say, mine is. I don't know where knees go. I kind of just wing it every time. I do know where my knees are. I can find my knees. They're at the front part of where the leg bends. I got that, but I just kind of wing it. My point is, Rob Liefeld is operating at a level of draftsmanship that few people will ever achieve. He is conveying precisely what he is trying to convey, and it reads as it is meant to. And that is no small task in an industry that demands sometimes superhumanly fast drawing, which also goes some of the way towards explaining why some of his drawings are sloppier than others. It's not that he's bad at drawing, it's that comic book companies are bad at managing labor. The only reason people can have the temerity to say that he's bad at drawing is sample bias. He's only ever compared to other comic book artists who tend to be exceptionally skilled. Even if he's not an MVP, just getting on the field means he's pretty good at baseball, you know? I don't care about defending Rob Liefeld's honor here. He kind of sucks, to be honest, but it's discouraging when people say that, because I assume a lot of amateur artists look at Rob Liefeld, someone who is universally condemned as a talentless hack, and like, boy, he's so much better at this than I am. I would have to work for years, maybe decades, to get to the level that people are saying is so ruinously unskilled. And to dismiss all of that, to say, has he ever seen a human body, is like, well, have you seen a human body? Could you do better? And I'm not saying you need to be a technically skilled artist to criticize art. You definitely don't. It's just that, you know it's not that easy, right? Like, it's that you can't just look at something and immediately draw it. Like, it doesn't work like that. It's easy to observe when a drawing looks wrong. You don't need much technical skill to do that. You just get like a weird feeling and you look at it and you know the bones are wrong in the drawing. You know the drawing is wrong about how it looks, but knowing something looks wrong is not the same as knowing what it is supposed to look like or how to fix it. Even if you did, you might try again and make new mistakes. Obviously, if you knew how to fix it, you would have drawn that instead. You drew this because you thought that's how it should be drawn. This is why observation is a frustrating skill for artists to develop. You have to train your mind to learn how things actually look, not just draw them the way you think they look. But also, to learn to simplify how things look so that you can actually convey them on the page. Often you can tell that you made a mistake, but you can't tell what the mistake is. You know it's wrong, you can feel that it's wrong, but you don't know why. Because it's really, really hard to observe in the way that an artist needs to. Like, easy example. What color is my skin? Did you just say white? Because okay, yes, but not really. White people aren't white. You know, like, we're all sorts of colors. I'm like a lightish pinkish brown, which is doubly confusing because, like, racially to be brown means a completely different thing. So if you described me that way, people would probably get mad. But those are the colors I are. But I'm not one color. There are highlights and shadows, and light refracts or diffuses through some parts of the skin, giving it different hues, which themselves have different highlights and shadows. And there's ambient lighting affecting all of those colors, as well as whatever light sources are bouncing around, as well as the reflective colors of other objects in the room, and different parts of my skin are going to have different textures which affect how each of these things interact. It is impossibly complex. Even this camera can't replicate it, not really. Cameras have what's called a dynamic range, the ratio between the brightest and darkest area of an image. Every camera can only capture things that are so bright and so dark, and beyond those thresholds, the information is lost. And that's just the value. We're not even getting into the color range, the motion blur, and all sorts of other factors which make even a photograph unrealistic, even if imperceptibly so. It might appear flawless to you, but it never actually can be. And that's a fucking camera. The human eye is even weirder about this because sometimes it doesn't even look at stuff. It just tells you it did. Sometimes it says, hey brain, I think I know what that is. You figure it out on your own. You don't need me for this. There is no rendering realistically. There is only ever giving the illusion that you have done that. Drawing is basically a series of magic tricks, ways to fool the human brain into thinking it sees a thing, be it an anime waifu, a suspiciously sexy wolf, or a Batman. When actually, it's all lines. This is lines. They're playing you for fools. It's always been lines. See this? It's just lines. Tricked you again, that's not lines, it's a series of flashing lights which produce the illusion of lines on a screen. The prestige. But okay, let's say God comes down from heaven and gives you magic art powers. So now you can just tap your magic pencil on the paper and it creates a perfect image. Congrats. You are the world's greatest photocopier, because in addition to all of the technical skills you have to learn, there's also the creative element, the intentionality. Why are you drawing what you're drawing, and what do you intend to communicate with it? How to compose an image, which things to exaggerate and which things to downplay, all of which is an infinitely complex subject because you can imagine anything. You can imagine wolves so sexy they cannot exist in the real world. There is no end to this process. You cannot know how to draw. You can only ever be learning to draw. And in that sense, in comparison to the infinite yawning chasm between hypothetical perfection and anyone alive actually striving for it, the difference between a skilled artist and an unskilled one is trivial. Both possess infinitely small fractions of the total knowledge and skill that one could. The gap between an infant drawing wobbly stick figures and a master artist is dwarfed by the gap between the same artist and what is possible. Perhaps this is why Picasso once said, every child is an artist. The problem is how to remain an artist as we grow up. But also, I feel compelled to point out, for me, there are only two kinds of women, goddesses and doormats, so kind of a mixed bag, soundbite-wise. Maybe don't get all your soundbites from Picasso. But okay, let's say you managed to do all of that. Let's say God also grants you a perfect, immaculate vision of how to compose an image and a boundless, infinite creativity which rivals her own. Some people, a lot of people, will still not like the things you choose to make with that power, because beyond even the limits of what is good and what is bad, there's like a taste element too, right? Like, you cannot please everyone. It is subjective. And that's not even getting into the fact that art is not simply a thing you make that other people neutrally ingest. They also interpret it and change it in ways that are beyond your control. You might think, for example, you're writing a condemnation of the authoritarianism inherent to vigilante violence, but actually, the people reading it are like, this guy is neat. What a neat guy. I wish I were like this neat guy. Or maybe you're making a psychological drama about the ways that toxic masculinity drives some men to violence, and the people watching it are like, this guy's neat. What a neat guy. I wish I were like this neat guy. Or like, say, several different movies about the predatory nature of the financial sector, and the people watching, you get it. You basically can't make art about fucked up guys. They say it's impossible to make a truly anti-war movie because the spectacle of war is just always going to be appealing to some people. It's just inherently cinematic. And I submit that it is impossible to make a truly anti-fucked up guy work of art as well. So there's a tension here, right? Because on the one hand, you can never be good enough. As an artist, there will always be flaws in your work, and there is always someone who could have done it better. But on the other hand, you also don't need to be good at art in order to make good art? Because good art is just whatever people like, and sometimes people like stuff that isn't good for technical reasons or good at all, like Ready Player One. Maybe they like it because it feels raw or it has a charm to it, or you accidentally drew a really funny face. Or maybe because people sometimes have bad taste, so a bad work might appeal to them. Again, Ready Player One. Any artist, regardless of skill, is constantly mediating this contradiction. When is your work worth showing to people? When is a work of art done? When are you done becoming an artist? Da Vinci once said that art is never finished, merely abandoned, which is why I went back to all of his paintings and gave everyone huge tits, like I assume he would have done if he had time. You're welcome, Leo. Part 2. Get the poison out. Sometimes you gotta let it go. You gotta let other people have it, because if you keep it forever, it's nothing. You didn't make something. You wanted to make something at some point, eventually. I say this because I get a lot of emails from people who, for whatever reason, feel the need to tell me that they want to make something someday, be that a novel, a cartoon, but most commonly a YouTube video, because that's the thing I make for a living. And I definitely sympathize, because there are plenty of things I too want to make and don't, either because I don't have the time or because it's just too hard and I don't know what to do. But also, and I say this with nothing but love in my heart, hold a seething contempt for this behavior and everyone that engages in it. Myself included, of course, but mostly other people, because despite myself, I do sometimes actually make the things I want to. So, you know, I just don't respect anyone that doesn't. If you're panicking right now, if you send me an email and you think I'm talking about you, I don't mean people who ask something specific like, how do you structure an essay, or what program to use, or what's the best way to promote my work? That kind of thing, that's fine. That's a technical question, and I'm happy to answer questions like that. I do want to help people that are trying. I'm referring specifically to people who say something like, I want to make something but I don't know how to start, or I'm afraid I might not be good enough, or I'm afraid people might make fun of me. Because when you say that, what you're really saying to me, whether or not you know it, is, hey, Thought Slime, I noticed that you make YouTube videos, and it seems to me, could be wrong, but it seems to me like you get a lot of attention and praise and money for those, and I would like that as well. But here's the problem. It does seem like it takes a lot of emotional vulnerability to put out what I think is good work and risk other people criticizing it, or worse, ignoring it. So I guess what I'm asking you is, how do I skip the part where I have to risk anything or put in a lot of effort and still get all the rewards? You can't, dog. That's the price of doing it. Sometimes it feels really bad, and even if it doesn't, you have to be willing to risk that it might. Them's the breaks. I got bad news for you. No matter how good you are, people will make fun of you. People make fun of me. It sucks. It might hurt your feelings. It definitely hurts mine all the time. But the thing is, that's fine. That's not a very big problem to have. You just kind of got to have the emotional maturity to live with it. Like, it'd be better if everyone was cool and nice, but sometimes people are not, so it's just, you know, how it is. And like, I get it. I got that rejection sensitive dysphoria. I have gone into enough complete emotional tailspins over strike comments to know it's fine. It'll suck, but you'll live. And if you don't want to pay that price, I cannot stress this enough, that's perfectly okay. You don't have to. Just don't make anything. No one's forcing you. If that's your attitude and you're asking for my advice, then I'm sorry. My honest answer is you should give up. You should find something you want to do more. And I'm sorry if that sounds discouraging. I don't want you to give up. I want you to change your attitude. But if you're unwilling to do that, yeah, it's better for you to quit. Just save yourself the trouble. Don't get mad at me. You're the one who doesn't want to do it badly enough to pay the price. So just find something else that you do want to do. Why are you mad? Here's the thing about art and creativity. It's all very fun. We love it. We love to do it. But it's also, it's poison. It is corrosive to the human soul, and it will kill you if you let it. You will die. So what you got to do is you got to get the poison out of you. You got to get it out. That's what it means to make art. That's not to say that it feels bad to make art. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. You know, like all poisons, it can be very fun in moderation. It's just that if you keep it in, you will slowly wither away, like you diminish. You never become as good as you were meant to. If you have art inside of you, you got to get it out. Get it out as fast as you can. I'm sure some of you watching this right now have a vision in your head of a thing that you want to make, and you know how good it is inside your head. That is the poison. You've been poisoned. I'm sorry to tell you, you have to get it out. You will never impress anyone with how good the thing you want to make is. Because of course you want to make a good thing. Why would anyone want to make something bad? Nobody cares about that. You cannot make them care, and that passion you feel can only hurt you unless you get it out. You want to impress people? If you want to impress me? Very easy to do. Successfully make something terrible. Or better, but like start it terrible if you have to and work your way up. Make the thing that you want and it's bad and it's embarrassing and you fall on your ass, artistically speaking, maybe also literally if your art form is dancing, and then try again, but do even worse. Double down on all your bad habits. Try your absolute hardest only to face humiliating defeat after humiliating defeat as many times as it takes. You want to be an artist? You gotta have the courage to be a really bad artist. The only thing, and I do mean the only thing, that separates someone like me who makes a successful living as an artist from everyone else that wants to is that I was willing to deeply embarrass myself many, many times. I put out work, often quite bad work, and let people have it until eventually I made some stuff that people liked. And I'm not done with that process either. The embarrassment is not behind me. I have to keep doing it every day. It's just as hard for me as it would be for you. I know what I'm talking about. Every time I make anything and let you have it, it could be bad. I could have done a stinky video. I've just learned to live with the unavoidable possibility that I might suck at this and just fucking do it anyway. Even when I suck, especially when I suck. Because we think of sucking at art as failure. You did it wrong. You should have done it the right way that didn't suck. If you play the correct notes next time, that'll sound better than playing the wrong notes. Thanks. Now I know. That mentality can be useful sometimes because it helps you improve the fundamentals. It is good to think this way sometimes. But most of the time, it is paralyzing. People do not like to lose. We don't want to fail. That feels bad. People are especially afraid to fail at art, which is something that they tend to have a lot of passion for, especially when they start. And it fucking sucks to try your absolute hardest and make something that you don't feel proud of. When you put in everything you could and you came up short, it feels bad. It just does. The truth is though, and this might be cold comfort, but sucking at art, insofar as one can suck at art, which is a whole other conversation, is the opposite of failure. That is what success looks like. You are doing the thing you are supposed to be doing. Part 3, why you personally, yes, you will never be good enough. And if that sounds discouraging, it's because all art exists on a continuum between infinite suckiness, like Ready Player One, and the looming promise of goodness just over the horizon. You're always getting good. You're never being good. Waiting until you're good enough is the actual failure state. You will not get there. You can't get there. And even wanting to get there is bad for you. And I don't blame you. We are all incentivized to think this way. We're taught from a young age that you transform from someone who wants to be an artist to an artist the minute your artwork becomes commercially viable. That is the yardstick by which we measure the quality of an artist's skill. Did they get paid for it? And if so, how much? Can they make a living with it? Otherwise, they're just a hobbyist. Stephen King literally said in On Writing that the difference between a good writer and a bad writer is getting paid to write. A good writer is just somebody who cashes a check and pays a bill with money that they made writing something. That's all it takes. And by this standard, I am a better artist than Vincent van Gogh. So, I'll let you decide if it is actually a useful metric. So we think of someone having made it as an artist when they're skillful enough to reach industry standards, when they can reliably produce professional quality work, which has the unfortunate side effect of putting all artists and all art which exists outside of the narrow confines of the small portion of art that people are willing to pay for, not real art. And it means that most real art is just porn. But the minute that someone pays for it, now it's art. Now you made art, no matter how shitty it is, no matter how pointless. Now it's real art because somebody paid you money. And thus we place a high premium on technical abilities. That's the thing that is valuable, money-wise. That's a hard skill. You have an ability that most people don't have, and they need it. So they pay you for it. And if you don't have that, you failed. And your artwork is bad. And you shouldn't have made it, and it's bad failure art. And I don't want to put too fine a point on this, but if a set of demons got together and tried to devise a system to crush the spirits of young artists, they would never come up with one more effective than this. We are specifically and exclusively valuing the one thing that everyone lacks when they start. And most people will probably lack for their entire lives unless they specifically train themselves at it. Everything you do in the meantime, right? Your clumsy doodles of your OC, your self-insert fan fictions where you either beat up or have sex with everyone in My Hero Academia, the poetry you wrote when you got your heart broken, none of it matters. All of the time, energy, and passion you spent on it, all of the joy and the catharsis that you got from it, it's all bad and pointless and embarrassing because you didn't do it properly. You didn't do it in the way that makes people buy it. It's not real art like Ready Player One. When I say I don't know how to draw, I'm not being self-effacing. I'm liberating myself from the need to know how to draw before I draw. I'm drawing and improving at drawing for the simple pleasure of it, even if I know that no matter how much I improve, I'm never going to live up to the standards I've set for myself. I'm letting people see my sloppy, unfinished, and unsophisticated work because I am letting the poison out. You will never learn to draw, because nobody will. It doesn't work like that. Expecting there to be a point where you've graduated and now you know what you're doing, that is a recipe for a complete self-esteem implosion. The painful truth is that if you try, you will get better. But if you try hard enough, you will never feel like you're getting better. But actually, it's a lie. I am going to teach you how to draw. You can learn to draw. I'm going to teach you how to do it. This is all a trick. Art is just tricks. Like I was saying, this is all a trick. It's the prestige. I'm going to teach you how to draw. So right now, pause the video if you have to, grab a pencil and paper. I'm going to show you how to draw. After this, you're not going to be good at drawing, don't get me wrong, but you're going to know how. Here's what I want you to do. It's real simple. It's 2 seconds to learn how to draw. You ready? Just draw a circle. Don't overthink it. Just draw a circle, put it down on the page. Now, if you're not already a trained artist, I guarantee you just did one of two things. You made a big swoop with your pencil where your circle is either lopsided or doesn't connect, or you slowly and meticulously scratched away making a circle shape out of a bunch of little lines that make it look fuzzy. Or you used a compass, in which case you're a smartass, and I said to do it with a pencil. You're not taking this seriously. You did a circle you probably feel is not very good. A bad, wrong circle. And I don't mean to shame you. This is just your first draft. You're going to do better. Just follow along with me here. Hold your pencil nice and light, all right? Hold it above the page a little. Practice the motion of a circle and try to use your whole arm instead of just your wrist. And just keep doing that motion over and over until you start to visualize the circle on the page from the motion alone. And then slowly and very lightly continue the motion as you press down on the page, like as lightly as you can. Does your second circle look different than the first? Is it way better? Were you focusing on the technique, or were you trying to avoid the two mistakes I brain poisoned you with? That's right, that was a trick too. I did that on purpose. It does not matter. You just learned to draw. You rendered a circle, probably not a good one, but you likely have an idea about how you could improve it. Then you carefully observed your work to see how you could consciously adjust your technique and internalize the feedback. And you studied that to see whether or not it looked better. That's what drawing is. You just learned to draw. So here's the thing. If you had a project that you were waiting to start until you learned to draw, I just destroyed that excuse. Dance, puppet, dance. You have no choice but to chase your dreams now. You've fallen straight into my trap. So work hard, practice every day, and if you're very, very lucky and determined, maybe you have what it takes to be terrible at this. It's never too late to be terrible. You know I say this a lot, but this one really got away from me. I wanted this video to be out so much faster than it was. I'm going to need to just start doing less personal videos, I think, so that I can get them out a little faster. In either case, thank you for your patience, everybody. Thank you especially to my patrons over at patreon.com/thoughtslime. You can see the drawings that I made of them scrolling by. I wasn't lying about that. I truly do that. Didn't do it in 2017, like I said in the video. Apparently it started in 2018, but hey, that's why pencils got erasers. Also, if you want to buy a shirt, I do sell t-shirts at thoughtslimeshop.com. All of these links, by the way, you don't have to remember them. I put them in the description.